Nice. Looks like we have a whole bunch of people on already. I feel like, John, whenever you want to get started. Welcome everyone to the shop drop-in. Today we're going to be covering ReCap Pro. We have John Sayre from the ReCap Pro team.
All right, well, thank you. My name's John Sayre. I don't know if any of you have seen me on, I do a lot of webinars, things of that nature, build a lot of videos that are posted to YouTube for Autodesk. I work for Autodesk. I'm a technical marketing manager. And one of the products that I work with closely with Rita, who's also on this call, is ReCap Pro. And first thing I wanted to kind of talk about an agenda of today. We're going to do a high-level overview of ReCap Pro. I'm going to be in the product mostly. All right, so I'm not a PowerPoint guy. I like to actually show you the product and show you how it works. So we're going to be in the product. ReCap Pro is made up of a couple different things. All right, so there's when we talk about scanning, all right, we talk about drone scanning. We also talk about terrestrial scanning. We talk about mobile LiDAR. I mean, these are all words that are not necessarily buzzwords, but they are words that are used in the industry, right? So there's a big difference between mobile LiDAR and mobile scanning to drone scanning, right? So ReCap Pro, which is the parent product, is made up of or has an entitlement of ReCap Photo and then ReCap Pro Desktop. Okay, so ReCap Photo, when the way to think about this, ReCap Photo uses drone imagery, all right, for the scanning. So the first thing we'll do today is go into ReCap Pro and talk about how you would build a ReCap Pro project, or I'm sorry, a ReCap Photo project. Then you have ReCap Pro Desktop, which is going to consume our LiDAR scans, all right, in a raw form. I have a data set that's a pretty large data set. I'm going to show you in the demonstration how we can bring in and manually register the scans together, or we can let it automatically register the scans. All right, we'll touch on those two things briefly. Then we will also go through and show you how you can take a piece of the scan and bring that piece of scan into another software or another piece of the AEC collection. In this particular case, we'll be bringing it into Revit. All right, so I've got a building that I want to, we're going to add on to that building. Well, no better way to take and then look at existing conditions than a point cloud, right? Because it is a physical representation of what's out there in the field. So we'll take that and bring it into Revit. Now we probably won't go much further than that because we like I said, we got a lot to go through, but you will see how it interacts with the other tools inside or the other products inside of the AEC collection. We'll bring the ReCap Photo information, asset information that it generates from the cloud. We'll bring that information in, a point cloud is what we're going to bring in. We'll bring that into a product called InfraWorks, and then I'll show you what it'll generate inside of Civil 3D. So we've got a lot of products that are all inside of the AEC collection that we're going to talk about today. So you're going to see me flip in and out of things. I'll try and not go too fast. I don't want to lose anybody. And I'll try and be sure that I explain exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So with that, I'll go ahead and get out of this. All right, I'll minimize this. And we will start here with ReCap Photo. Now, again, ReCap Photo is actually inside of ReCap Pro. Now, I launched this from my desktop, okay? And this may seem silly to talk about how we launch it, all right? But there is some confusion as to where ReCap Photo is, why is it here, why is it not here, and what it actually does do. All right, so I'm going to actually flip to ReCap. So this is the desktop version of ReCap. If you didn't launch ReCap Photo from your desktop, if I select new project, I can pick photo to 3D, and what it'll do is it will launch ReCap Photo. Okay, so you can launch it directly from the ReCap Pro dialog. All right, we've already done that. It's right here. Okay. Now, if we want to create a new photo project, what we've done is we've gone out and we've flown a site. Okay, that site was the site you're going to see today was actually a site we flew in Denver, Colorado, and we wanted to fly it so that we could gather existing conditions. Gathering existing conditions on a civil engineering project is the first thing you do every single time. Okay. And you always want some sort of aerial image that represents what's there today. Okay. Not an image that was taken by another service, 6 months ago. I want to see what's there today because things are moving and moving and being built and things of that nature all the time that the civil engineer will have to take into account for. So we went out and flew this site with the drone. All right. That drone gave us these images. Okay. If I look at this image, the reason that it's able to put these in the correct location right out of the gate without setting what's called GCPs, a GCP is basically ground control that the surveyor has actually physically located in the field. All right. So it's a true northing, easting, and elevation of that specific point. We'll talk about GCPs a little bit more here in just a little bit. So why did I bring up and show you this photo? Well, if you look at the details on these photos, I always get the question, how does it know where it's at? It's just a drone, right? Flying over and trying to capture this data. Well, if you look at the details, you can see that these images have a lat long and an altitude, okay? So this lat long will physically place them in the correct location right out of the gate without adding any GCPs. So we talk about mapping accuracy. We talk about survey accuracy. They're two different things. Survey accuracy is a much higher grade than mapping accuracy. All right. So everybody wants a survey grade accuracy because we flew this site. Okay. It was well over, I think it was close to 200 acres. We flew it in an hour and a half. Okay. If a surveyor was to walk that entire job site, all right, it would take them much longer than an hour and a half to walk it and pick up everything in detail like what we're going to see. So this is huge, being able to just for an image, an overall image of the site, being able to capture all that with the drone in that short amount of time. All right, so let's start a project. It's as simple as this. If we go up to aerial, all right, and I go out and I select my images. Right, these are just I downloaded these images right off of the card on the drone. I got to see if this is the right one. It is not. Let me go to here and I'll go to images. Now, the current limitation of images for ReCap photo is 1,000 images. Now that there's talks of that changing. I don't know when that would be. You might look for that in the future, maybe. But for now, you can push up 1,000 images. All right. We've got 881 right now, so I'm going to add a few more. All right. I've got actually a few more than that I could add. We'll start here at the bottom and we'll go up to say, we'll just go to like 240 or 230. All right. And hit open. All right, there's duplicate file names. You can tell it to override, or you can tell it no, and it'll add whatever it can add. Okay. So we're at 991 photos. Now that's got them in our session. All right. We're started our project. Now I want to bring this to what would be closer to survey grade. Okay. In order to do that, you have to bring in what's called GCPs or ground control points. Okay. So in order to do that, you simply select ground control points, crazily enough. All right. Make sure that you set your coordinate system to the coordinate system that the state plane coordinate system that you're using. This is Colorado 83 Central Zone Foot. All right. And notice that we have the photos. It'll show all of the photos. I could scroll down or I could select this map. Now it starts out here and it comes over to our location, our project location. Right, so I can see if I've got the right images actually applied. In this particular instance, I should have probably started the last set with starting at 1 going down, but that's no big deal for a demonstration. So, but it shows you all of the images, all right, and coverage. Okay, so we've got a lot of coverage that we're looking at here. So let's get our GCPs applied. I'm going to show you how to to set one, and it's the same process for each one. the first thing you got to have is this file right here. You got to have the actual survey data. So it's in XYZ format. All right, let me go back to find that file. That's the one file that I did not open. So we will go here, data sets, recap photo, here it is. So this is just a notepad file. So it's got the point number, the easting, the northing, and the Z elevation, the true easting, northing, and Z elevation of the file. I simply just do this, just copy it, all right? And then I can hit Control V and paste it in, all right? Great thing about ReCap Pro, how do I find these? How do I find these control points, right? If you filter it by the GPS coordinate, it reads the northing and easting, or the easting and northing, and matches it up to the lat long on the photo. So these are the only photos that this particular GCP is located in. All right, so if it's close, now sometimes it'll show, sometimes it shows in all of them, sometimes it's really, really close and it might not show, but it gives you the option to just narrow 1,000 photos down to what, maybe 8 or 9 or 10. So it's a lot easier to find. So I can pick one of those photos, and you can see these are big Mylar X's. So you can see this is just really close. There's no Mylar X in this photo. If you select another one, there it is. So it just wasn't far enough to the north. So that's what the targets look like from the air, right? I zoom in and I can select that particular target. Now I can get a lot closer to the center of that than what I just picked. I can move this around to where I'm right in the middle of that target, okay? I hit done and it says to place 3 more. You really need 4 photos per GCP, okay? So I'm gonna place 3 more. So I'll just select this photo. I'll zoom in and I'll pick a point and hit done. I'll pick one more. Select that and hit done. And then I'll select one more photo. Pick here and done. All right. Once that's done, you'll see this green check mark. That means you've got at least 4 photos that are selected. You don't need more than 4. 4 is the kind of the sweet spot for it. You would do that for every one of these GCPs that are visible, right? So if I go back to my map, it's reloading it here. So if I go back to the map, it should come up and show me my GCPs here in just a second. There they are. There's the photos, and there's the images that are relative around each GCP. So I can hover over that and see those individually. All right. So easy, great way to visualize how things are all going to be put together. All right. Once these are all set, and again, you set the rest of these the exact same way. If I pick this number 2, I go back to the photos, it only shows me the photos around that particular GCP. So it makes it very easy to set them. We would hit done. All right. And then the last thing we would do is hit create. Now, first thing we do is give it a name. I'm just going to call this demo 1. We set our location. Now this is something that's kind of new. We can actually set a location on BIM 360. So we can set it on our local machine. Wherever we set this is, or not our local machine, I'm sorry. It's either BIM 360 or Autodesk Drive. This is where it's going to push the deliverables to, okay? So if I go out, I can pick that folder, I can navigate, or I can just use Autodesk Drive. So I could just select Autodesk Drive and select a folder I could create. I'll just do my data, and we'll just hit here, select folder, okay? Then I would tell it what I wanted it to push out, all right? So it's going to push out an RCM file, which is a ReCap mesh file, all right? A mesh is different than a point cloud. It's something that we can actually visualize and look at in 3D inside of ReCap Photo. 3D point cloud is what it's going to push out in RCS format. It's also going to generate it's going to generate multiple RCS files and create what's called an RCP file that is a recap project file. It's going to build the ortho photo that is a geotiff, and this is one of the most used things, even more than the point cloud sometimes, being able to see that what's there today photo. And if we use PPK or RTK, if we've used that to capture our photos, there are specific drones out there that actually have this mounted to them. Makes it to where you don't have to necessarily have GCPs. Then we would select that also, and it would go ahead and generate assets from those photos also. Last thing is the target coordinate system. We want to be sure we set this correct. Okay, so it's the same coordinate system that we picked before whenever we were adding the photos in the GCPs. So it's Colorado 83 Central Zone foot. All right. And we would hit start. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit start. And all it does is it starts to push these photos up. So it's pushing them to the cloud. All right. I'll close this because I evidently hit a button too fast. It's right here. You want to leave recap photo open because it is going to work in the background to get these generated or pushed up. Once they're generated or pushed up to the cloud or to the service, then this will say, it'll say that it's starting to build the project. And you can close recap photo at that point and just wait, because you will get an email that says that your project is finished and you can take a look at your assets. Now, your assets will be on either Autodesk Drive or it can be in BIM 360. All right, so let me look here. I've got BIM 360 open and I'll show you where I've already processed this. And I can show you the results. So I'll go to recap photo here and I'll say, look at my processed assets. And I called it red tail when I pushed it up there. This is what you get back. You get your RCM, you get your zip file or your RCS, which is your point cloud. You get a report, which tells you how your coverage was, a lot of different things in the report. I'll download that and open it up real quick, let you see it. And then you get the TIFF, all right? That's what we wanted to bring in. That is the what is there today photo. So we can download each one of these, okay, to our local machine and start to use them inside of other products like InfraWorks, like Civil 3D. You can even bring, you can even bring it into Revit. A lot of times we just focus on buildings, but sometimes you fly a small site, you want the whole point cloud, you could do that. Let me download that report real quick so I can just download that source file. And I'll show you the report that it generates when it gives it to you. And let me go to downloads. All right, I'm just going to extract the files here and I'll open up that report. Here it is. So it tells you for process time, it took 5.5 hours to process, okay? It tells you what kind of elevation changes there are in a digital elevation model, what the digital elevation model looks like. Shows you your overlap. Notice that we had plenty of overlap in this particular set of flights. Shows you your ground control points and the calculated error in the ground control points when you set that. All right, had a couple here that were checkpoints. Here's the calculated errors that it had. So it's a nice report to see just what you have overlap wise. Make sure that you had enough overlap in your flight, and then it gives you your image that you can look at for a preview. Now, how do we use that, right? So why do we want it? Well, we want to start off by looking at it inside of InfraWorks. So if you've never seen InfraWorks before, it's a great visualization tool, and it's a great tool for preliminary design, okay? We can quickly lay out roads, we can throw some buildings on here, things of that nature, but we want to start with the best existing conditions data, right? So let's start with the image. Let's start with the point cloud, and then we could generate a surface here in InfraWorks also. So before I tell you that, I'm going to take 30 seconds here. You can build a model that we just saw, this model right here, okay? I can build this. If I turn it sideways, you can start to see 3D elements inside of it. I can build this very, very quickly with Model Builder. I can look at any location in the world and it will generate a model. I'm going to do this very quickly, all right? Littleton, Colorado is where we're at, all right? Our site is, say, right here. We don't have to be exact. I can select my site that I want. I give it a name, all right, test, and I give it a coordinate system. All right, CO83, whoops, CO83-NF. Oh no, that was CF. Hit OK, and then I hit create model. Now, what it will do is it goes out to the service and it pulls data in from OpenStreetMaps. It pulls an image in from Bing. It pulls surface data from USGS. That stuff all comes in out of the gate so that you have data to start to work with and start to, when you're aggregating existing conditions data, you can add to this existing model. So it's a great way to start. Very, very quick. Again, we'll get an email that says it's ready. We can select it, open it up on our local machine, and be off and running, just like we're doing here. Now, whenever I talk about bringing information in, it is very easy in InfraWorks to start to aggregate that data. All right, so let's talk about the image first. So I'm going to just drag and drop that image in to InfraWorks, and we'll show you what we have. All right, so let me find it on my machine here. All right, so I've got this image right here. I'm just going to drag and drop that in. We go through the dialog boxes. All right, so we tell it you can leave this LL84. That's the main coordinate system in InfraWorks. It doesn't matter at this point. You can leave that there. You can check the raster options. We would want to do a color mask, but that's something that's very simple to do. You need to bring it in before you do it. We would just hit close and refresh. All right, this is a pretty large image. All right, this image ends up being around a gig. All right, so InfraWorks works very well with large files. So I've got what's called a proposal that's already got this image brought in. So I've already processed it and brought it in. It takes about 5-10 minutes to bring it in. So it covers, and you can see that this image is much better than the Bing image, okay? I can actually see the trees, okay? I can see the branches on the trees. I can't see that with Bing, okay? Lots better quality. I can zoom in. I can see that this is some sort of pallet dump. Somebody's been dumping pallets here. We could use this for some kind of control too, to see who's maybe dumping their trash on my site. But you can just see a lot finer detail than you can with the original Bing image. Now, the point cloud itself, all right, I can actually drag and drop the point cloud also. All right, so I'll just do that real quick. I'll grab the point cloud. And like I said, this point cloud is right here. It's called Redtail. It's an RCP, which is a ReCap project file. In the Redtail support file, that's where you have all of the other RCS files. This particular one, there was only one RCS. So I can just drag that over and drop it in. All right. And you go through the same configuration, right? The coordinate system, which in this particular case is Colorado 83CF, it should come up and set that for you automatically. You hit close and refresh. I'll hit close and refresh. We'll keep our fingers crossed. It shouldn't take that long to bring it in. But it will come in and it will set on top of the model. And you can see it. There it is, right there. All right. So I've not only got my image, but I've also got my 3D model that it shot, or that it generated from my points, or my photos. Getting ahead of myself there. So I can see that this is a pretty good drainage path that's running through here. I can see that there's a box culvert that I've got to take into account for. We definitely have to worry about this in our project, because we can't have this just going through our project, right? So this is something you might not have seen very well on another image that was not very clear. We have definite great detail of this now. So what we can do after that is actually generate a surface, all right, from this. If we look at, and I'll have to turn off the point cloud itself. If we look at an engineering view of this and take a look at our model explorer here, I can turn off that point cloud just like that. And you can see this is the set of USGS contours that comes in. Now these look okay. I mean, it defines this channel, but if we generate a surface from that point cloud, which is great data, okay, then this is what the surface looks like. It looks a lot more defined. See how the contours are a little bit jagged? That's because there's millions of points that this is being generated from, okay? Millions and millions. That's what makes this so much better, being able to generate that from the assets that were created from ReCap Photo. All right, so we also, and I'll just flip over to Civil 3D here. You also can bring this into Civil 3D, which is our engineering design product. All right, and we can start to create alignments and profiles. I can just simply draw a line across here and just do what's called a quick profile so that you can see that it reads that information. And I can stick that profile right there, and you can see that it's reading it vertically where it's sitting. So this is that great drone information that we pulling it from the cloud. So you can see I can move this line and it adjusts that over the surface. Great way to visually see how a road might be laid in. You definitely don't want to have to traverse this with a new road. All right, so we may need to locate our road in a different location, maybe here. All right, so it looks a little bit better. But you can see that we can use this inside of InfraWorks and Civil 3D. We could also bring the image in also. All right, I'm going to jump to how we would use ReCap Photo. All right, so, or I'm sorry, ReCap Pro, the desktop version. All right, so I have a bunch of scans, all right, that I got from a guy across the pond, as they say, it was somewhere in the UK, and they sent the raw files to me, and we generated the ReCap files so that we could start to work with the point cloud and just pieces and parts of the point cloud inside of Revit. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to create a new project. And again, before I told you, ReCap Photos right here. If you ever want ReCap Photo and you're in ReCap Pro, the desktop version, then you can see that button right there. We're just going to import point clouds. All right. I'm going to tell it don't save, and I'm going to create a new project. All right. I'll call this presentation. Should have called it demo. All right. And I'll hit proceed. Now I can import those files. I can drag and drop those files also, okay? This is what those files look like. They've got a .zfs, okay? They're pretty large, right? 200 meg a piece. This particular instance, I'm not gonna bring them all in because there was about 30 or 40 scans. So I would hit open. First thing we would do is set the coordinate system, all right? I'm not gonna go through that. It's simple, you just set the coordinate system. But then we would hit import files, all right? Now, it's auto-registering these scans, all right? I tell it here I wanna manually register these scans. So sometimes you might want to actually select each scan and say, okay, I want you to marry this scan with this scan at this point, okay? This does take just a second to come up. So I'll briefly show you that whenever it comes up because these scans are pretty big. Once the scans are loaded, then it doesn't take that long to bounce between the different scans. So it would take, like I said, just a little bit. We'll give it another minute or so here. Once these scans, if we manually register these scans, like I said, we're going to be able to do it according to two different location or one location that's actually shown in each one of the scans. You know what? I'm not going to wait for this. I'm going to go back to one that I've already done here. Let's see. These are already registered, so I'm going to hit. No, I don't want to do that. I want to manually burn it. I didn't want it to have to do that. Let me hit skip registration. Now it's going to automatically bring those in. You can manually scan them. I don't want to have to wait on that. We don't have enough time today, but you can manually actually select that point. Should have had a video of that. I didn't realize it was going to take so long to do that for some reason. But what we can do once these scans are in is we can tell it to automatically register these scans. That just takes the scans and it does a registration for you. You don't have to actually register them. So it looks like this, and we can just hit launch project, and that actually opens up, and they're automatically registered in the correct location. All right. So this is a rather large point cloud. All right, I'm going to let it build out. I can zoom out and let it build out a little bit. And there's several things we can do here inside of ReCap Pro. We've got, you can see that there's probably a lot of noise. So if we were using this for not to go into Revit, maybe we were using it to come into Civil 3D, we can actually edit these points out that we don't want. All right, and you can do that by creating different regions and deleting things, or just simply deleting points. So like if I turn it on its side here and zoom down, you can see different blobs of points. Now, what are these blobs of points? Before we just start deleting things, we want to know what they are, right? So we can use what's called Real View. If you use Real View, then it's going to go and show you here in the upper right-hand corner a view at every scan location that you brought in, okay? So right now, we're looking at this particular scan location. It takes just a second to open. I have a lot of things going on here on Zoom, so. So I can see that those blobs of points, they're people, okay? So I can pan around and look at the location, kind of orient myself. I can actually see another scan. There's a scanner set up right there. I can see that they're scanning at that particular location. But maybe I want to get rid of some of this information. You can do one of two things. You can just select those, all right, and then you can just hit delete, and it'll delete all of that information. Now, in this particular instance, I don't want to necessarily do that because there's other information that's back here, maybe a building. It might take a piece of that also. So what you would do to delete all that stuff is create regions, okay, and then you can filter out what you don't need. All right, we're going to create a region for this particular building right here, okay? I see that there's some questions there in the chat. I'll wait till the end. So this particular building, and this is all hypothetical, folks, okay? I tried to find a smaller point cloud. This is the one that I had that represented pretty well. So this is the one I'm going to show you. But they're going to add on to this building right here. They're going to square this building off. But so we need kind of just an area around this. I don't want to bring this entire model into Revit, okay? The more point cloud you bring into any product, it's going to reduce the speed of the product, right? Because there's so much data. There's, I don't know how many millions of points there is in this particular point cloud, but I can tell you it's probably in the half billion mark, okay? That's a lot for anything to process, okay? So we want to kind of pare this down just a little bit. So I'm going to use that same selection mode, but I'm going to use fence, all right? And I'm just going to wing a fence on here. Just draw an area. All right. I'll pick right there. Now it's going to ask me, okay, I can see it, but what do you want to do with it? You want to clip everything outside? No, you don't, because then it's going to get rid of everything outside. I want to keep my point cloud intact. So if I only want to work with this one area, then I just create what's called a region. So I can select new region and I can say, this is my building. All right. And hit OK. Right. Then I can just hit clear and I'm back to square one. Now, if I go down here in the lower right-hand corner to where it looks like layers is what it looks like. I can select my different view states. I can select my scan locations, okay? If I select my scans, I've got underneath scans, I've got unassigned points, and I've got my building. Okay, this is the region that I just created. So I can look at the unassigned points and I can turn them off. Okay, so now I'm only working with these points in this particular area. All right, so if I wanted to, right, I could zoom in here and I could select with a window, I could select these points and just delete them. Okay, so if you wanted to delete your noise, you could do that. Now, there are other ways to select things that would make it a little bit easier and faster. Again, for the sake of time, we'll kind of forego that. But there are better way or other ways to do that. You could create as many regions as you want inside of this project, and then filter things on and off, or turn things on and off, so that you can get down and get into the weeds in the point cloud and just take what you want, instead of taking everything at once. So you can have an overall point cloud project and then just take pieces and parts out whenever you want. Okay. So once this is to the point that I want it, so I've got it filtered down, pared down the way I want, then I go up here into my menus and I'm going to export this out. So I'm just going to export this file. I've already done it. It took about 10 minutes to export that out. And what it does is it creates a new RCP file. All right, that RCP file is just the building. Notice I get crazy with my names. I called it building test. Okay. So I could call this whatever I wanted. I could tell it to create a new recap project and it would unify this. It's going to unify the scans. Okay. And it's going to take out just that piece. Okay. So it's like you're taking an ice cream scooper and just scooping out the piece of point cloud that you want. So it'll build, like I said, a recap project, or I can tell it to create an RCS file, which is just one overall RCS file instead of a project. So there would be one file instead of maybe several. You also have a couple other options that you can export to where there's other products that are out there that use this E57 format, or you can just dump out a PTS file of that area. So I would name it, hit save. It would prompt me to unify the scans. All right. And I would tell it yes, because this could be made up of several of the scans, right? We don't know exactly where all of that fit together. So we would just, we would tell it to unify it. And in that one area, it would unify those scans. Now, once that was done, then we can jump right into a product called Revit. All right. And I'm just in a brand new project, Revit project that's using the architectural template. And I can go to the insert tab up here in the ribbon and I can insert a point cloud. All right. Tells me to save. Let me save the project. Of course, it wants me to do this. I'll just save it real quick here, and we'll just save it right here. We'll call it a demo. All right. Again, I get crazy with my names. So once this is saved, we can select, or it'll come up and ask us which point cloud do we want to link to. All right. So one thing I'm going to do first is, and I don't have to do this, is I'm going to create a 3D view because I want it to come into that 3D view. It's a little bit more dramatic, right? So we'll bring in the point cloud. I'll say the building test point cloud. If there was an RCP or RCS, then I would have to change this to RCS for it to see that. Okay, remember that. It throws me off every time. This positioning, if Revit was set to a shared coordinate, I don't know how many of you folks have used Revit, but you can create a shared coordinate so that it is married up to a real world coordinate system, right? So state plane coordinates. If you have that set up in this model, then you can use shared coordinates. If you don't, and you don't care, you're just, starting off a drawing to start drawing walls and seeing what you can add on, then center to center is fine. Okay. So we'll hit open and it will bring in that point cloud. It's going to take it just a second. All right. Takes it a minute to get regenerated there. All right. So I can spin it around and I can look at it. Now this view, if you zoom in, you can start to see the level of points. I mean, that's how many points are just in this one spot. It's huge. It's a huge amount. So we can zoom around and look at the different areas, or at different areas, and see it's showing great definition. But the tab that we want to be in, or the level we want to be in, is this floor plan level, because then we can see the actual outline of the building, right? So why is the point cloud? I mean, why would you use the point cloud? Well, you have the actual definition of the outside of the building, right? So we could go in here, and I can, again, I am not a Revit guru. I'm a civil guy. So you're going to see the civil guy try and draw in Revit. All right. So I can start to draw walls, right, and snap to the different points that are in here, right? So I can snap to here. I can, I don't have much definition there, but I can get close. So I can come back out to right here and here, and maybe right there, here, and then close it off. All right. So now I have, without bringing in, without having anything, just the scan, I now have the outside of my building. So now I can start to work on this other piece here that we want to add on, right? But I have something that's vector that I can use. It's an actual wall in Revit. I could turn this 3D. It's not going to look right because I haven't set any wall heights. But I could do that. I could turn it 3D and look, and you can see that wall is there. So we could start to adjust these walls to the actual height of what the walls are, according to what the point cloud says, or what it shows. So very, very quickly, we're able to bring that point cloud in. We isolated just the building we wanted. We brought it into Revit, and I traced the outside of the building, so that we can start. Okay, we can start adding on to the building. Now, there's ways to get, more finite than this. Surveyors would actually locate the building corners themselves. But if you have an overall scan, like what we had right here in ReCap, let me go up here and turn all this back on. If you have this overall scan, all right, that you've been doing a lot of work in all kinds of areas inside of this scan, then why not use this? I mean, because it's there, it's exact. I mean, there's enough points to show some serious accuracy. So why not use it? And the great thing is you can use it in all of the AEC collection, or a lot of the products. Navisworks, you can use it in Civil 3D. You can use it in Revit. You can use it in InfraWorks. You can modify it in ReCap. All right. So there's, like I said, lots of different applications for it once you have that great data that's used for existing conditions. So I apologize for the processing for the manual registration. Just know that you can. It's as simple as just selecting a point between the two scans. It's actually a picture. It looks something like this. So if I go back to Real View, all right, let that load that scan. It basically looks like the Real View, except for the screen is split. So it'll show like this scan location, and the next one, they're probably in numeric order, and the screen would be split. You'd see it here and see it here. So you basically say, that point right there, I can see that point on that statue. I can see that in both scans. So I pick that point, and it registers things to that point. Okay. You can also set survey points inside of this, and say that maybe the corner of that wall right there, they actually physically surveyed that, gave it a northing and easting and Z elevation, and you can pick that point and set that as a survey point, and it will register everything that around that to that elevation. Okay, so it just helps to make things a little bit more finite. One thing I didn't show you here in ReCap Pro, and I'm going to stop. I get off on a tangent. You got to reel me in. So I can select this view full page. All right, so I can see here, that's what the scan looks like, but I can say, you know what, I want to see what that scan actually can view. So if I pick that, it'll load that scan into this view. Takes just a second. And then I can pan around and look at that view, and I can go back to the overall view, and it puts this plan view up here for the scan locations as smaller, right? So lots of great detail. One thing that is definite with the terrestrial scanners, if I go back to the 3D view, look at this water. The scanner actually, once you got to let this sit for just a little bit. You can see it starts to fill all of this in. There's so many points. It picked the water up coming out of that fountain. All right, you can see it. All the water and everything. I mean, it's such huge detail. And that's why there's so many points. The points are made up and give you all of that great detail. So I could keep going, but I know that you guys want to have some questions and have some time for that. So it's kind of a high level overview of ReCap Pro. And remember that inside of ReCap Pro is ReCap Photo, and that's the solution for the drone photos to create all this great existing conditions data. So did you want to do questions or?
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we can start off. Does anyone have any questions to start, or specific areas that they have interest in that maybe we didn't get to cover?
Yeah, I have a question. I know my friend was working on using ReCap Photo to take a bunch of photos of like a person's head, and then they would basically print out a bust, like 3D print a bust of their head. And so I had at my past additive manufacturing lab, one of the directors literally had a metal bust of his own head on his office desk, which was pretty interesting. But is that possible to do?
Yes, you can do it. It's not what we kind of market it to do, because it's more for a larger scale of things, right? And it works very well, like I said, with our engineering, architecture, engineering products, construction products. So that's what we market it for, and what we use it for, what engineers use it for, what architects use it for. Now, will it do that? Yes, it will. You have a minimum amount of photos that you have to add to create that. So if you're going to do something like that, you need to take probably at least 25 to 30 photos to do something like that. So, and you may have a couple runs that you have before you get it to look exactly right. But yes, it will do things like that. Now,
To answer that question real quick, will it export an STL straight from ReCap Pro?
From ReCap Pro or ReCap Photo?
Or ReCap, well, either, honestly.
ReCap Photo, I believe so. Let me look here.
Just because that's the most common format we're using for 3D printing here.
Right. I believe it will. I don't know that any of these are actually on. I don't know if they're on my machine. Let me see if I can open this one here. It's going to take it a second to download. I didn't have any meshes on my machine. If you're going to do something like that, you would want to do it from the mesh, and not you can't view the point cloud inside of ReCap Photo. You have to view that inside of ReCap Pro, the desktop. But the mesh, and vice versa, you can't look at the mesh inside of ReCap Pro on the desktop. You have to look at it in ReCap Photo.
So in general, is it a good rule of thumb to say that ReCap, whether you're using aerial photo data for photogrammetry or LiDAR scanning, ReCap Pro is a good tool to take all the data, register it, get everything set, and then you can move those data points into whichever piece of software for your workflow, whether that's civil or
Yes.
Revit or. Okay.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. So it doesn't have a lot of, modeling capability built into it, because it's meant to move that data once it's compiled and into those other pieces.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
So this is still okay. So this is the mesh of that site. that I showed you earlier in InfraWorks. So if I export that, I don't want an image. I want to export the model. This is, would you say an PTS or STL?
STL, so it's there.
Yep. So it's here.
Oh, cool.
So
Also has all the other formats that we like to use personally.
yeah, OBJ or FBX, PTS.
Yeah. So say you were doing like a large historic object, you know, like a statue in a town square or something like that. If you were, would you also be able to do that with LiDAR, where you built a mesh off a LiDAR scan?
No,
Okay.
because okay, so if it was mobile LiDAR that selected that, or you created it with mobile LiDAR, that would be brought in and used inside of ReCap Pro, not ReCap Photo. The desktop. And you can't, I don't think, let me look at one thing here. If I just go up to export. Yeah, this is all you can export to out of ReCap Pro. Now, it's also, you can't export a mesh from here, and you can't read a mesh inside of here. You have to do that inside of ReCap Photo. But if you were going to look at the scans for that, then you could export to those other formats, maybe bring that in to ReCap Pro and view it in ReCap Photo and view that in ReCap Photo. But I don't know if that's a good workflow. That might be a stretch. If I was going to use scanners or the terrestrial scanners to get this right here, because that is a workflow that some folks might want to do, right? Meaning in InfraWorks, right? So I've generated an InfraWorks model of this entire site, and I want to take some real 3D objects that are there, right? And populate that for a presentation that I'm doing as a civil engineer. Well, you could go out and you wouldn't have to fly this with a drone. You could actually use your iPhone or your Samsung or whatever, and you could take photos around this, okay, overlapping them generously, okay, and it would and bring that into ReCap Photo, and it would build this object right here for you. And you could take that into well, you could take that back into ReCap Pro, which is what we're looking at here, and delete off what you don't need, right? Like, so it's going to show the tree, it's going to show all that other stuff. Well, you could, you know, just cut out what you want, and then push that out, and it would come into your InfraWorks model as just that piece. And people, that is a real world workflow. All right, people will do that because they want a presentation to look as real as it can be, right? And if I'm modeling this in InfraWorks and I've got a Revit model of this building, I've got other models of these buildings, or I'm representing them as the point cloud, right? If I want this to come in and be more specific, and I want it to have more texture, I want it to have more to look more lifelike, right? Then I could cut it out of the cloud, go out and take the photos, let it generate a mesh, and then bring that mesh in and populate it inside of InfraWorks. And it looks fantastic. I actually did that for a presentation for, I believe it was for the Army. They had a, we were just showing them the capabilities, and I went downtown and actually took a picture of an old cannon, right? And I went around it. I took about 100 photos, put them all in, and built that object, and then dropped it into the InfraWorks model, you know, at the front of their building that they had, right? Because you on a military base, they all, you know, every time you go on there, there's these cannons just sitting around randomly. So I did that, you know, and they thought that was cool because they could physically see the object as it is out in the field. It's not just some, you know, claymation model. It's the actual real deal. So
Totally. Do we have anyone with other questions before I jump in with a few more I had?
Yeah, this is David Marks. I'm on the graphics team in Forge. I had a question about the basic hardware required. I know that for ReCap Photo, you can use basically any camera, but But if you were to fly a site, what would an entry-level drone be that would provide adequate photos? Or if you were doing terrestrial scanning, what sort of entry-level LiDAR scans are available? Or
I don't have an actual, like for terrestrial scanning, an actual model number out I can give you. I mean, anything I think this was actually done with a Faro scanner. So anything that's, if you go to their website, they're going to have entry level type scanners. This was probably middle of the road, but they have it kind of categorized on the site for that. Now on the drone side of things, you want something that's probably got a 20 megapixel camera. There's a lot of different types of drones that are out there, but anything that's got a 20 megapixel camera and above is going to do a great job. There's some, smaller drones that are out there, like the Mavic or something like that, that now have 20 megapixel photo cameras on them. But the older Mavics, I think they were 11 megapixel or something like that. And I did try and process some of those photos, and it looks okay, but it's not going to get you anywhere near what a 20 megapixel camera will. The Phantom 4 Pro's got a great camera on it. It's a relatively good entry level point, and it'll give you the level of accuracy that you're wanting. I don't have the exact. I know that the Faro scanners. I mean, there's Faro, there's Topcon, there's Leica, there's all kinds of scanners that are out there. Faro is a really they're well priced, I guess. I don't want to say they're cheap. They're well priced, and they're a quality unit. People love to use the Faro scanners, so they can set that up, or they can, you can look at their website and see what levels.
Thank you.
In our shop, we've used both the Faro Focus S and the Leica BLK 360.
Yeah, the BLK 360 is going to be something that's entry level. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take a look at those. I was just kind of curious, entry level price point. Are you looking at thousands of dollars, or, tens of thousands of dollars to get a small shop into, say you have a small 1 or 2 man civil engineering shop and they wanted to do this. I was curious what it would cost them to get into it, but I'll take a look at those websites.
Yeah, I don't have the pricing right off the top of my head.
BLK 360 is about $18,000.
So it's a healthy investment, but not, it won't break the bank, so to speak. But a hobbyist wouldn't get into it. It would be for a small business for sure.
Yeah, although if you're doing drone flights, like John was talking about earlier, I mean, you can get in a Phantom 4 is significantly less than that. So you can get in that if you're doing more civil stuff.
I think you can get set up well for, $1,600 to $3,000 with a Phantom 4 Pro.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had one other workflow, just a quick question. We've had some teams who are doing essentially construction planning or phasing for, museums and libraries and things, and doing scan data inside, and then trying to essentially design the equipment they're using to hold the parts they need to move, which is sort of difficult because it's both, you need your reference LiDAR scans of the building, and then also trying to build off on that.
What are they using to build the equipment? I mean, what software are they using to build the equipment?
So well, right now they've been using Revit to design kind of the scaffolding and all that work that they're doing inside the building. And then they're gonna try to use Fusion 360 to design the actual attachments to the pieces. So this is, like large stone entryways that you'd have in a history museum or.
Well, so what was the question about the workflow?
Oh, they were just kind of wondering what might be the best method, because they both want to try to make a mesh of the object, but they also want to bring the kind of LiDAR data into Revit. And they don't have as much experience with the scanning workflows.
Well, I mean, if they scan it, they're not going to be flying that with a drone, most likely, are they? I mean, it's going to be scanned.
Yeah, probably scan.
I mean, then they would use the same workflow that we just showed. They would, in order to get that stuff into Revit, and then they could build around it. Now, this is showing, you know, the scans of the outside of a building. All right. Well, I mean, you can bring in a point cloud that you've put together that is the whole exterior of the building and then the interior of the building also, right? So you can bring all of that together into one project, RCP file, and then you can bring that whole point cloud into Revit if you want. So you could actually go in and start to look inside of a room and start to build things out. So, so I mean, don't think that just scanning is just the exterior stuff. I mean, you can take interior walls or whatever the interior of a building looks like. I've seen people scan a huge warehouse, right? Because they wanted to look at it for some type of facilities management. They wanted to see what all they could put in there, right? Different layouts, and they take and scan the exterior, right? And then they scan the interior, and then they can see where plumbing comes in and goes out, where the electric is, blah, blah, blah. And they can start to lay out in Revit, they can start to lay out what's, you know, what kind of rooms, how they want to break the building up, things of that nature. So I kind of equate that kind of in that scenario, which the workflow would basically be the same. It's just a different type of scan. You don't want to say, a scan's a scan's a scan, but you know, there's a lot of application for scanning, and it's just going to get better and better. And I think it will get more affordable. You know, the question about how to get into it and what it costs and things of that nature. If you look at surveying, people thought that GPS, the way of or using GPS when it first came out, like GPS units, was super expensive, and it was. You know, rather than using, you know, what they call a total station, which was just a, you know, an instrument on top of a stand. And that's how they've done it for years. But now GPS is the standard, right? So, and things have come down in price, and they've made it 10 times better than what it was. That's what's going to happen with scanning. I think but it's going to be at a more rapid pace. I mean, you can already scan some things with the new iPhone, can't you? The new iPhone Pro or iPhone 12 Pro, I believe actually you can scan things with it. Or it's doing augmented reality and things like that. That's where these scans are going to really come into play. So, I mean, you can probably look for, and this is just a rule of thumb, you can probably look for file sizes to get smaller so that they can go to the cloud, they can be accessible in the cloud. You can price of the equipment to come down a little bit to be more, well, to where you can more easily get into the field and not have to, you know, give them a pint of blood. There's just a lot that can happen very rapidly. I mean, within the next 5 years, I think you're going to see huge changes, but all along the same line, much like it was when using GPS. I'm in surveying. So
Awesome. Definitely. We're getting lots of great feedback in the chat, which is awesome. So thanks
yeah,
everyone for coming. I know we ran a little bit over. And if anyone has one or two last questions, feel free to pipe up. But I think we'll probably head out in a minute.
Is there any way to troubleshoot when ReCap fails to generate a scan when you're uploading it to the cloud? Back in August, I was trying to do some high resolution photogrammetry scans of construction site, trying to get down to the level of detail that you see in this scan. And it was like 900 images or so, trying to stay under the limits that ReCap has, but they just kept failing.
now ReCap, okay, hold on, ReCap or ReCap photo?
I think this is Pro.
Yeah, but I mean, was it images or was it actual scans?
Images.
Oh, okay, so images. So you were having a problem with it when it got close to the 1,000?
When I was up in the, yeah, I was having to truncate the image set to get it under the 1,000 photo limit.
Right.
But even then, it was still failing. It wouldn't say why. It was just it failed. That was the only
Okay.
prompt I was doing.
So it was failing to push them all up there. Did it fail at different times?
No, they pushed up there, but it failed during the generation. Like
to
it's in the
generate it.
generation phase.
No. How many times did you try it?
About twice, and then I tried a few different like quantities of images, and then I just kind of gave up.
And it failed every time.
Yeah. Is there a way to? I don't know if it's still installed, but if I were to try it again, go find a log file to actually troubleshoot it.
There's probably not going to be one on your machine, because they could see it on the back end for the for the processor in the back end. Have you tried it since then?
Not since the license expired, so not since.
Maybe. Boy, I've only had it fail once, and when it failed, it was my own fault. It was because I closed the software and then opened it back up, and when it resumed, there was something there that it didn't like. That's the only time I've ever had it really fail, because once you push the images up to the service, then the service takes over. So I'm curious if we could ever find a log file. I wish it wasn't back in August. Maybe, or if you remember the name or whatever. I don't know if that even still, if the development team would even still be able to find it. But I would recommend trying again. Well, you can't because you don't. Do you have a? So you don't have a trial or anything. Can you download a trial?
The trial would not let you upload photos, I believe, was the issue. The trial.
I thought there was a photo limit. I thought maybe it was only 100 or 200 photos it would only let you. That's like the I wanted to say school version, the educational version that you download. If you've got a license for that, it doesn't allow you to do more than 150 or 200 photos.
We can probably help you with that. We can also probably help get you in touch with John, and make sure the licensing issue, we can work out with that, because all the residents should have access to ReCap Pro, both photo and desktop. So
yeah, I would say try and process it again, or have somebody process it again. If you get that same error, okay, then you're more than welcome to email me, because I'd like to know why it's giving you that error. Because I've not had it. It's pretty bulletproof. I've only had it do it once, like I said, and that was my own fault, because I closed it, and when I opened it back up, it was the next day, and it tried to resume, and it just didn't. It didn't. Something was wrong, and I just reloaded the images again, created a new project, and it worked fine after that. So, yeah, I would try and get with somebody and see if it works again.
definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you, John. We really appreciate it. And obviously, if people have other questions, or they would like to try out a workflow or get some opinions, feel free to reach out to any of the Technology Center staff. We can get you in touch with John, and we can work out access and do all those fun things. We definitely love to see more scan projects come through the space. So yeah, thank you again.
You're very welcome. I hope I covered what you needed.
Definitely.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. And we'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Thank you.